On this week's special edition of the Game Adventure Podcast, we're focusing on the Summer Games showcases that finished up this week. We are breaking down the blockbusters, talking about family-friendly games, and picking the best indies and also some of the worst trailers. Let's go. The Game Adventure Podcast is a weekly family-friendly show keeping you up to date on all the latest news in video games. We'll also mix in a heavy dose of nostalgia with retro games and even things like how the worlds of tech and culture and even faith interact with video games as an art form. We're doing it all in less than an hour every Saturday morning, so let's get started. What is up, everybody? Hope you're doing fantastic. I hope you had a great week, maybe had a chance to watch some of the announcements as they came out from the various video games showcases. I thought we'd do today's episode a little bit different, and instead of looking at every news story that's happened, we're just going to focus on these 4 big shows that happened. I know there was also a few others looking at like cozy games and future games, but the ones that I'm looking at in today's episode are the Nintendo Direct that happened. We're going to look back at Sony's State of Play, the Xbox Games Showcase, and then also the PC Gamer Game Show, which showed us a lot of stuff that's happening in the PC space over the next, year or two in some cases. So that's kind of how we'll be breaking down. We'll still have our regular segments, and we'll start those with industry news. So obviously the showcases were mostly about the games, but there were a couple of things that came out over the course of these presentations that was really kind of an industry insight. The first thing was that we really are in this weird in-between season of like console transitions, and really the difference between digital and physical is starting to become more and more apparent. Nintendo was really the first to kind of make this obvious. The first one was the Switch 1 and Switch 2 straddle that Nintendo did as part of their entire show. A lot of these major upcoming titles are still trying to target both generations to keep this massive player base happy. And while I can appreciate that, my kids certainly appreciate that. It was exciting when I would be able to tell them, oh yeah, this will actually work on your Switches as well. You won't just have to wait until you can play mine in my office, the Switch 2. And so what we saw was a lot of different games that kind of seemed like they were trying to still be available to the Switch 1. And a few of them was odd that they were exclusive to the Switch 2. So one in particular was this Pikuniku 2. And it was announced it's a very like low fidelity game. And for some reason, it is exclusive to the Switch 2. So maybe it does raise some questions for me as far as what is happening with the dev kits behind the scenes that would require a game like this to only be exclusive to the Switch 2. It also seems kind of niche, kind of weird. So I don't know why you wouldn't want the largest player base possible for a game like that. The other thing that I noticed, particularly with Nintendo, is that they really are pushing us to abandon physical media. So like look at the Xenoblade Chronicles Switch 2 version, for example. The digital editions of these games that are coming out for Switch 2 are pretty consistently scheduled to drop earlier than physical. So not only do we have this like $10 price difference between digital and physical games now, we're also adding another further incentive. Oh yeah, if you want it on physical, you're going to have to wait until it comes out on physical. So it's really, they're pushing us towards a digital version. They're incentivizing us to do that by kind of almost holding the game hostage for physical folks who really want the physical edition. So that was interesting. Another thing I noticed kind of industry-wide was that the game trailers are not holding up compared to the game trailers that I remember. Now, I know that modern game marketing has changed a lot, and they have to really opt for like flashing gameplay clips and kind of showing the chaos of the game in the hopes that that will be fun or will appeal to the modern gamer who has a short attention span. But what they've really done is they've kind of put together a chaotic group of clips that don't really explain the game's premise. It doesn't talk about the game's narrative, the unique hook, like what's unique about, I don't know how many shooters I saw. And at the end of the trailer, I said, well, that looks like every other shooter that I've seen up to this point. And by the time I got to the fourth showcase, I was bored out of my mind by these trailers because they weren't saying this is what makes our game specific. There were one in particular that I noticed, Valheim Deep North, was this like Viking vibes. That was cool. Lots of snowy locations, but zero explanation of what the game was actually about. And so it doesn't really pique my interest because it looked pretty, but they really gave me nothing else to work with. I don't know if anybody else is in this boat. I know like the game Senua is this sequel to Hellblade from a couple years back. And we know, if you know a little bit about the backstory, you kind of understand this is like a mixture of reality and a conversation about mental health. And it's a unique game for sure. But they don't tell you anything about that in the trailer. They don't allude to any of it. It's so confusing that you're just kind of left thinking, I have no idea what this game is about or why I should care. And that's like marketing 101. You're trying to explain to the customer, why should you care about this? What makes our thing different? I work in marketing, and that's one of the first things that we ask a customer about their product is what makes this different from your competitors, from the lookalikes. And they tell us, like, what's the benefit to me as a customer? And it seems like these trailers aren't doing a good job of showing us what that's all about. So maybe they need to go watch some movie trailers. Movie trailers have gotten incredibly good at kind of giving us the gist of why we should care about this, so that you turn to the person next to you and say, oh, I can't wait for that to come out. That looks good. There's also kind of if there's sameness across these trailers, there's a lot of sameness across the aesthetic, especially in the indie space. So there was a high saturation of this VHS retro look. So like a filter added across the game itself, making it look kind of like a VHS. And also mixed with this early 2000s kind of like pixel art filter look. I saw this on Gone Feral, Virtue, Sledgehammer. These games that are kind of, it feels like losing their artistic edge that they're trying to use with graphics, and they just end up looking like a low budget game that really doesn't pique your interest any longer. I will say that there was a couple of exceptions. So like trailers that really did get it right. One was for Stronghold 4. This is a game that we'll talk about a little later, but it's basically a castle simulator where you have to hold down the fort and expand your kingdom. And the trailer itself focused really heavily on the game's like really unique character. It was packed with tons of humor that kind of gave you a flavor of the game, and it communicated in a very short trailer what it feels like to play this game, like what you're in for. And as a result, I was really excited. The Halo Campaign Evolved trailer was super clear about these like new additional missions that they're adding. And it really got the player, especially those of us who have played this game to death over the years, got us excited to play it again, like new content in an old game. Wow, that sounds really exciting. Spyro, A Realm Beyond, the new Spyro game, they did a really good job kind of communicating this look and feel and what the gameplay was going to feel like. I really enjoyed that one. Another trailer that really got me was one for a PC game, a super indie game called Duskers 2.0. And the interface was very simple, very pixel art based, not even like pixel art, but like old PC based. There was a couple of games that looked this way, but this one, the trailer gave you some emotional weight where you're trying to save not just humanity, but these like specific families that are going to be a part of whatever the mission is that you're doing. So there were a couple of trailers that really stood out, and we'll kind of talk about some of the graphics that stood out as well. Not everybody was trying to push a like low poly look with early 2000s graphics and a VHS filter thrown over the top, but there were a lot of them. So I noticed that. With that, let's go ahead and jump into the tech update. Certainly with the tech across these games, we're starting to see this very high level, especially in the AAA space, of graphic fidelity, where the line between cinema and live gameplay has been blurred. And now some of these, it's almost like reality and live gameplay. Is this a video that I'm watching of actual like real world, or is this gameplay? A few of the standouts, just from a technology standpoint, were Wolverine on PlayStation. The level of texture and micro details in this trailer, even kind of gross stuff, but like physics-based stuff, like he has blood on him after fighting with these guys, and you see him step into this puddle of water, which looks completely realistic, but you see like the blood and the mud come off of his boots and start to spread through the water. Everything looked very tactile and believable. So super wild stuff there. Another one that really stood out was the new Silent Hill game. It has like a movie-like quality with skin texture and the fog and these facial animations that were just unreal. Like it could have been a person standing in front of you. They've moved past that like uncanny valley feel for the most part, and it started to feel very realistic, like you're watching an actor in a movie. Another one I noticed was the game Oni had this like facial expressions that just, I mean, it's like motion cap on steroids, but you've added back life into the character, which is wild to see in a video game. So that is cool where they're taking the technology. Another standout in tech was like the enormous scale and environments being dynamic and breakable. One in particular was Warhammer 40,000, the new Warhammer game that's coming down the line. It's in like a early alpha stage, moving into a beta where people are actually testing it. But the scale of this is like you can sit in your armchair as like a general at a solar system level, and then you can zoom all the way down into these up close, like seeing the individual units type view. That level of scale is something that previous versions of technology would just not have been able to pull that off. So that's very cool. Age of Empires 4, or Raiders of the North, on Xbox. This one also showed like the number of characters on screen, the density of characters was just wild, that you have all these characters and they're not like all moving with the exact same animation either. They're jumping over stuff. They're interacting with the environment as they move. The character models are detailed. So like just at scale, wild things happening with games like that. The other kind of thing that I noticed tech-wise was this use of a lot of innovation instead of just like raw power. So using graphics tech for actual gameplay. One that I noticed from PlayStation was Kamuri. That one features this like frame like window mechanic where you hold your hands up and you see into another realm. And it kind of lets you interact with the world. It reminded me a little bit of like Metroid Prime 2, because you have the two worlds that exist in the same space. But here you could actually look into the other world and kind of, I assume there will be some, not only combat, but like puzzle solving that goes along with that. So that was a cool thing that I don't know that you'd have been able to pull off even 10 years ago with games. Other games are like Minecraft coming to the Switch 2. So if you didn't know this already, you can play Minecraft on the Switch 2, but it's actually just running the Switch 1 game. And so very limited, really like palette for light and shadow and detail. And so this is really bringing Minecraft to use the next gen power of the Switch 2. So it shows off these vibrant visuals, dynamic lighting, shadows, definitely proves what the new hardware can do for simpler art styles like Minecraft. And it does actually make the game more enjoyable in some ways. It's hard for me to go from playing it on a PC now to going back to the Switch, for example, because it's just very different graphic settings. Another one that I noticed was a game called Vampire the Masquerade. And it used this like top-down perspective, which was not entirely new. It was like a scripted text-based interactive story kind of thing. But the top-down perspective was unique because of the light and shadow mapping that was used to kind of build tension. Like a character opens a door and you see light pour through from the outside into the room that you're exploring, but not all the way. It's not like the lights come on when you step in the room, you know, kind of like in those old TV shows where like they light a candle and then the stage lights turn on and you can see, okay, there's the lighting effect. This is like the character from the top down opens a door and you see the light spill into the room, but there's still dark corners. There's still atmosphere. That's very cool lighting tech. And I think like the technology being used to actually make a game better and more immersive. So like technology applied for a purpose instead of just look how pretty I can make it. So I thought that was really cool. And then finally, the Xbox 25th anniversary console announced. That thing looks amazing. I have an Xbox Series S because it made sense for me to get that at the time. I'm happy with it. It runs great. It runs everything fine. Definitely starting to show its age in some ways. But I'm probably not the market for getting a Xbox Series X just for the sake of collecting it and having it. That's not me. I don't come from that type of financial backing for this hobby of video games. I'm just happy that my Xbox Series S continues to work. But the 25th anniversary system definitely brings back all the feels from the original systems. Those like translucent green reminds me of the Duke controller, this thing that was so big you couldn't even hold it in your hands. But we still used it and loved it. So definitely taking advantage of nostalgia. But I think a very cool way of doing that for Xbox. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into the next section, which we are retitling the Retro Reboot. Definitely these showcases leaned into the retro, like nostalgic energy of the current day. Definitely a lot of millennials in particular coming into a time when we're looking for those games again that we played 20 years ago. So definitely a wave across like the entire industry of all of these showcases leaning hard into remasters and remakes and even retro collections. So that's kind of cool. A couple of the things that are being brought back, and the Nintendo Direct showed off, obviously, the Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time remaster. It was officially announced. We had leaks a month or so ago that this was going to happen. And so it's still exciting to hear those notes of the music coming across in the trailer. We knew exactly what was happening as soon as we heard that first note come out, which is awesome. That's a great use of a trailer. This one definitely stands out as one of the better trailers in the show. I kind of wish that they had shown us a little bit more of it, especially since we knew it was coming. And so it kind of cut 30 seconds before I was ready for it to. But obviously one that we're all really, really excited about. I got a text from one of my best friends from like that I grew up with, James, texted me and he was like, dude, Ocarina of Time remaster. And that was all he needed to say. Like, yes, we're all very excited about that. By the way, it's his birthday today. So happy birthday, James, if you're listening. Hope you have a great day, man. Lots of memories being introduced to video games with James, for sure. Another one from the Nintendo Direct was Rayman Legends Retold. So it looks like it was a good remaster reveal, specifically showing this like 4-player local co-op, which looks just as crazy as any Rayman game. Xenoblade Chronicles 1 through 3 are getting brand new digital editions that take advantage of the Switch 2's power. So that was exciting to hear about. Kingdom Hearts collection, a lot of quality of life features in this collection. We'll talk about that a little later. Definitely also cool that it allows you to transfer your original save files from the Switch, if you had that edition, to this new game. Not as cool as if they would have said, we're going to allow you to actually own the game if you own the original, which would be nice. But I guess they got to make money, right? Metal Gear Solid 2 Collector's Edition. Thought of my friend Taylor when that came up. It's this like legendary stealth title getting the modern treatment. Over on the PC gaming side, Thief, if you remember this game from like 20 years ago, the Dark Project is getting a remaster. And so this remaster in particular felt really familiar and really smart. It keeps the core gameplay completely intact, but also includes these like quality of life upgrades. It made me think of the way the Command and Conquer remaster felt, where everything about it still read like the original game. Like this still feels exactly like the game I played, but everything's a little sharper. It plays a little smoother. Really appreciated all of that. So excited to see Thief coming out with this remaster. Company of Heroes getting a definitive edition celebrating the 20th anniversary of the original game. That is wild that it's been 20 years, but it looks really incredible. Again, keeps the same look and feel. Over at the Xbox showcase, I mean, Halo Campaign Evolved. That's the one that everybody's looking forward to. The preview looked fantastic. These brand new additional missions that they're adding, I think could really help with building out the story of Halo. If you don't know, there are a ton of Halo books, novels that talk about the world of Halo and kind of tell the story. And I will say, after reading some of those books, I actually enjoyed playing the games more because you kind of pick up on these little pieces of lore that you missed before. But it makes the shooter feel more story driven than just playing it alone. So I'm excited for those missions. And then also the Persona 4 remaster. So that was kind of given a brief nod in the showcase lineup. Sony's State of Play was kind of the exception here. They didn't really, at least I didn't note any explicit remasters or retro collections in their notes. They've brought a few of these that we've talked about to the PlayStation Plus lineup. There was a PS2 game that was getting redone, but really not a focus for them. It was really like, here's the future of games. Here's the new stuff that we're bringing out. Not a lot of remasters for Sony. So I guess that makes them a standout, is that they really are driving hard at the new generation of games. They want to make new stuff. And so, hey, I say props to them for doing that. For this week's point of view segment, I want to talk a little bit about the level of mature content that was kind of the norm across a lot of these showcases. So here's the thing. The video game industry has always pushed the envelope, especially with content. There's always been an audience for dark, hyper-violent games, and be that as it may, this week really felt like total overkill. It made the showcases actually start to feel kind of one note. So imagine going to the movie theater and every other film that's hitting the screen was some kind of hyper-violent horror movie. Even the horror fans at some point get burnt out, and the general audience would kind of rebel because you're losing all variety. Like, where are the action adventures? Where are the family films? Where are the rom-coms? Like, somebody's looking for more variety in that. And maybe this is really just the dad in me talking, but when the entire industry kind of hyper focuses on gratuitous gore, it actively crowds out other unique and really some of them brilliant games from being promoted and discussed because they're such a minority. And the trend that really bothers me the most is this extreme 4K textured violence directed explicitly at human beings, particularly when the protagonist, the player, is the one that is executing these really brutal kills. And it ends up having kind of a numbing effect. When a villain does something horrific, it has narrative shock value and we recognize it as evil. But when we are the ones who are doing it for hours on end, it has this effect on us. Like, look around at the world. Reality is heavy enough right now. We have real world wars that are happening, and violence shouldn't be the entire point of a video game. And when it is, it honestly just ends up being bland and hollow and kind of pointless. The second thing is this like gross out factor almost that seems to be coming from some of these games. I think the worst offenders were games like Valor Mortis or Ill. These hyper violent kills with absolutely zero levity at least in the trailer. The entire point, it seems, is just to be gross. It's like the Saw movies, but on steroids. We saw it with Wolverine and Until Dawn 2 that are technically very impressive, but absolutely the level of brutality here is just exceptionally high. And then you look at the atmosphere of some of these games. You look at games like State of Decay 3 and Metro 2039. And I know that they're supposed to be kind of bleak worlds, but they're so dark that it almost makes you ask, like, is there anything beautiful really left saving in this universe? Is this a place that I even want to exist? Now, admittedly, it's just a video game. You don't have to live in that world. But at some point, there has to be something about the world that draws you in to keep wanting to return. At least that's how I feel about those. So from a purely critical perspective, relying entirely on shock value gets boring eventually. When everything is shocking, nothing is shocking. The game that's left underneath often ends up being kind of empty. If these were movies, a lot of these games would just be destroyed by critics for a total lack of story or point or purpose. And when developers start to focus, because a lot of other developers are focusing entirely on how brutal a game can be, they kind of compromise on originality, and they don't think about things like mechanics, and they leave us with this hollow, just kind of gross product. So this is why a trailer like the Gears of War E-Day trailer actually stood out a little bit to me, because yes, it's incredibly bloody. And given the franchise's kind of iconic, the chainsaw bayonets, I don't know that for this one, it makes sense to have a turn off the gore toggle. It might not make sense for that game. But at least the violence isn't being directed at human beings. It's these monsters. You're trying to save humanity. Some of these things are so grotesque that it's like more like squishing a bug than it is like hurting somebody who's, as a Christian, I'd say made in the image of God. And so we want to be cautious about the way that we approach violence in video games. I think it does matter. So the second type of mature content was this like trend I noticed across the trailers, which is what Patrick Star from SpongeBob would brilliantly call sentence enhancers. Profanity, right? So I want to be open about my lens here. I am a follower of Jesus. I am a dad with young kids, and these aspects of my life mean that I really don't appreciate gratuitous language in my media. It really doesn't make the game more enjoyable for me, for sure. Now, language, I would say, has a legitimate place when it is contextual. So if I'm watching a gritty war movie and the soldiers are under heavy fire, having them say, "Oh, darn it," like completely breaks the artistic realism and the intensity of the scene. I get that. You're trying to communicate something about reality in that. But dropping endless strings of really foul language just for comedic punch kind of destroys its own impact. Like by the 10th time a character drops something like that, it loses its punch. It's not really funny anymore. It's just background noise. Games like Serious Sam, Shatterverse, or Happy, a title that I can't even say because I want to keep the show family friendly, falls right into this trap. Their trailers for these, it's just lazy writing. Like if you want to be funny, write genuinely funny dialogue. Don't just rely on these like salt and pepper swear words to do the heavy lifting instead of being creative. That's not what anybody is looking for. The ultimate example of this kind of thoughtlessness with language was the trailer for the 25th anniversary Xbox console. So right in the middle of a promo for a piece of hardware, by the way, the backing track drops a blatant F-bomb. And here I was up to this point, actually kind of excited to show my son this new like look for this system. And now I really can't. Why is this acceptable? Just because it's broadcasting on the internet, just because they can. They would obviously edit that word out for a TV commercial. And there's a lot of ways to do that tastefully that still gets the point across. But it's a console. There's nothing inherently mature or R-rated about a piece of plastic and circuit boards. It adds nothing to the presentation, but it does force parents to go down, hunt down this road for edited trailers or somehow mute the audio for no reason. So I will say it is kind of exhausting as a parent and a person of faith to constantly weed through this like defensive shock value sludge just to find the good stuff. But good news is I did the homework for you. So up next, we're going to kind of pivot into our official game list for the week. And I'm starting by breaking down all of the high quality, bright, family friendly titles that you might actually be excited to play with your kids. So without further ado, let's jump over to the game list. So instead of organizing this week's game list by system, which is the way we usually do it, I want to organize it by looking at kind of the family-friendly games that you might want to play with your kids, and then looking at some of the like AAA type titles that I am actually excited about for one reason or another. And then looking at some like really unique indie games, because there was lots of those in all of these showcases. So let's start with the family-friendly standouts, games that you can play with your family and show them. The first one is Spyro, A Realm Beyond. So this trailer was really fun. It is a 3D platformer, classic open-ended, colorful world explanation. It's focusing on platforming and gliding, and it's just like classical platformer from when I was a kid. And I'm excited to have a new game coming out in that franchise that my kids are going to get excited about. That is coming out holiday 2026, so not too very far away. This was like a great palate cleanser in the middle of that showcase as like, this is a wonderful, beautiful, colorful world. I'm so excited for games like this. Another one was Planet Zoo 2. So Planet Zoo has totally taken off. It's become a very popular video game. And it's a management and sim game. You build, you customize, you manage basically a modern wildlife park with pretty realistic animal behavior and enclosure ecology. You're like kind of learning how to be a zookeeper, which is pretty cool. And the second one is coming out on October 13th of this year. This is a fantastic game for families. I love that it highlights real information about conservation and biology rather than just kind of being a mindless tycoon game. I love mindless tycoon games, don't get me wrong, but I like that this one is a little bit different, that it's actually teaching you something about these animals and making you appreciate them, which is awesome. Another super fun game, Crazy Taxi World Tour. Man, it's been a while since Crazy Taxi has come out. This is like an arcade driving racing game, very high speed, chaotic, open world driving. You're picking up passengers and you're trying to execute these like stunt filled routines against a timer. Looking at like a mid 2027 release date for this. So sometime next year. No dark themes, no like heavy violence, just a lot of color and a lot of humor and a lot of fun. So I'm looking forward to this one. Another one from the Nintendo showcase was the Rhythm Heaven Groove. So this is a rhythm minigame collection, super quirky, super fast-paced, like music-based minigames that require these precise button prompts aligned with catchy tempos. My favorite game in this genre that I ever played was Patapone, which is a little different because it's a fighting game also, but using these like catchy little musical rhythms that get stuck in your head for decades. So be careful. But this one is also locked in for the original Switch. So that's awesome. You don't have to have a Switch 2 to play this one. And that means potentially it's one that we can play together as a family even more easily. Rayman Legends Retold is a remaster of Rayman Legends. It's a great side-scrolling platformer, lots of hand-drawn aesthetics, probably late this year, early next year is when it's coming out. I'm excited that the remaster supports 4-player local couch co-op, which is perfect for parent-child gaming sessions. Like, this is going to be great. Another one is Flight Simulator 2024. They announced this. Flight Simulator is a photorealistic flying sim where you can it's good for learning about aviation, but also digital tourism. Like you can fly over places and it really does look a lot like that. They're announcing a update for this that focuses on the national parks, and they look incredible. What a great way to celebrate 250 years of the USA to look at these national parks that we have kept. So that's coming out, I think, pretty shortly here. Last game, I guess 2 more games on this list. Vivarium is a like cozy strategy creature sim. You design these terrariums. You kind of balance the ecosystem. You raise these animated like life forms in these terrariums. And so I love the old school cartoon art style, very visually refreshing, very peaceful. That's coming out sometime in 2027 and looks like a lot of fun. And the last one on this list is the game Orbitals. So this is a gravity-based puzzle and strategy game. You kind of manipulate the orbits and the trajectories and physics in this space setting. And that's supposed to come out late 2026. So really awesome cartoon aesthetic. I'm very excited to see more of this one. I can't quite tell if it's going to be really like a family-friendly game, but it has the potential to be. So moving on to bucket number 2. This would be the big AAA titles that have a lot of blockbuster hype. My personal standouts on this list are The Legend of Zelda, Ocarina of Time remaster, like full ground up modern graphical remaster of probably one of the best games of all time. It is confirmed for 2026. I really wish they would have shown us some more of that, but I'm sure that's upcoming. There's going to be more Nintendo Directs before this comes out, I'm sure. And very excited to easily one of the most anticipated titles for me and every one of my friends that I've talked to about this. Another one that's a little lesser known is the Star Trek game, Star Trek Outposts Unknown. This is a like colony builder sci-fi game set in the Strange New Worlds era. If you've kept up with Star Trek, I really have not. But you command a ship that explores planets, you manage resources, you kind of solve these interstellar mysteries that are so classic Star Trek. That's coming out later this year. This might be exactly the Star Trek game that I have been looking for. I love the Star Trek universe. I love like leaning into exploration instead of just like mindless combat. A little bit of mindless combat here and there is fine, but I love the kind of exploration that is looking like it's going to happen in this game. So I'm excited about that one. Final Fantasy Resonance. So this is a turn-based JRPG, Japanese role-playing game. It is a nostalgic callback to kind of the roots of the franchise. And you have to summon these like past heroes to use in the game. Full disclosure, I have never played a Final Fantasy game. So I've been told Final Fantasy VII is the one to jump in on. But this one looks like a beautiful style. It's that like HD 2D look. This might be one that I try out, that I jump in on. Maybe I just found out you can get Switch 2 games from our local library. So maybe this is one of those games that I'll get and try out and see if this is my jam or not. One for PC is Warhammer 40,000, the Dawn of War 4 reveal. So this is a real-time strategy game. I've never gotten into the Warhammer games, but I'm a big fan of real-time strategy games. Grand scale sci-fi warfare. This is the one where you can zoom all the way out to like a solar system. You're the general kind of level and all the way into like individual characters battling. This is planning to release, I think it's one of the beta builds in around September of this year. I was very impressed by just the scale of the game. It'll be interesting to see what kind of computer you need to actually handle this game. I don't know if my budget build is going to be able to handle that, but I guess we'll find out. Another one that's in a similar genre is Stronghold 4, this castle simulator. So this is a ground up prequel to the last couple that was built in Unreal Engine 5. It focuses on not just real-time strategy like battles, but also castle economy, the blueprint of your layout of your castle, siege warfare, weather factors, a ton of stuff. There's a demo coming out for that on June 23rd, and the release date is sometime in 2026. This trailer stood out to me. It seems funny. It has this like medieval type of humor, the things that people were dealing with at that point in time. Life was not easy. And this one, again, stands out that a trailer can be great if it communicates the game's personality to the potential player. Another big game coming out is Exodus. This is one that has been called a spiritual successor to the Mass Effect series. It is being developed by former BioWare people, which is the company behind Mass Effect. This has the makings of an absolute masterpiece. You've got narrative-focused space combat. It's centered around like time dilation and squad companionship and tons of like choice and consequence story branching, which I absolutely love. When you have a game that you can play and there's long-term consequences for the actions that you make, I love that because it's more true to life that your actions actually do make a difference. So I'm really excited to see more about this game coming probably early 2027. Maybe by then we'll actually have an announcement about the next Mass Effect game. Who knows? Another one is God of War, the new God of War game, which has got some flack for some reason for having a female protagonist. But if you watch the whole trailer, like the opening gameplay for this game, it is very like narrative, mythology driven narrative. There's environmental like puzzles and really tight character dialogue. The quality of the animation in this is insane. Definitely God of War combat. It's a hack and slash adventure. But even though I don't have a PlayStation, I'm excited to see more of this particular game coming out. Probably, actually, I don't know what the release date is for this one yet. My guess would be probably sometime in 2027. Let's move on to our third and final group of games. This is the indie spotlights. The first one I want to talk about is this game called Duskers 2.0. It is a roguelike strategy game, and it totally exists within this low-tech, think 90s video game for the PC command terminal. You use text command line inputs to navigate drones through procedurally generated spaceships, to salvage gear and to rescue survivors. It is getting close to Steam Early Access, and this is one that I am absolutely keeping an eye on. The simple interface carries an unbelievable emotional weight in this trailer in particular. You get this, even from the trailer, this immediate narrative urge to save these people. So often these types of sci-fi games are about saving humanity, and it becomes very broad and almost disconnected and hard to care about. But this is no, it's not about just saving humanity. It's about saving this family and finding a place for them to live in space. And again, your actions seem to really carry a lot of, the choices that you're making carry a lot of weight. So I'm really excited about this one. We'll see. The Thief remaster. I'm excited for this one too. I tried to play Thief back in the day. I probably played it in the early 2000s. It came out in 1998, which is a long time ago. But this is one that with a little bit of updates, and we'll see they're still really working on it. We'll see what kind of changes that they make to the gameplay, because honestly, this feels perfect for what it is. This game represents every level of every video game that I have ever hated because I can't handle the stealth sneaking around. It's just not my jam. Every time there's a level in a game like this, I just try to blow through it. I try to run to the end. I try to fight my way through, even if I'm not supposed to do that. And I'm happy when it's over. So I don't know if this is the game for me, but I am excited to see the way that they're bringing back the heart of the original game. So we'll see. Maybe if it's remastered the way that Command & Conquer was remastered, this might be the version of the game to play. And I'm excited to see it come out. Another game called Into the Wind is a delivery sim, but with aerial combat mixed in. You pilot these flying crafts across these gorgeous stylized worlds. It's this weird balance of package delivery, a cozy game with high altitude aerial fights. It's very interesting looking. I love the look and feel of this. It's supposed to come out late 2026. I think this is a good example of distinctive indie graphics, which is kind of blending two genres that you wouldn't necessarily expect to see together. So I'm excited to get my hands on that one and kind of see what the gameplay is actually like. That pretty much wraps up this week's episode. So there you go. You have the highlights, at least from my perspective, of 5 or 6 hours of showcases from the last week and a half. And we did it in about 45 minutes. So I'm pretty happy with that. Our question that we are going to continue to ask is, what is the game that you feel like you're really excited about coming out? You're stoked for it, but it seems like nobody's talking about it. Not in the news, not on social media. Let's start to put together our own game list of games that we're excited about. So that's kind of the ongoing question. You can reach out to me on social media at The Game Adventure. You can also email me at thisisthegameadventure@gmail.com. And then also, I'd love to hear from you from this week's episode. What game are you the most excited about? What games have you seen in any of these showcases that you are really stoked about? Maybe it's one that I didn't even talk about. There were so many of them. I'm sure I missed some. So I'd love for you to reach out and let me know what you think. Part of the purpose of the show is to bring together a community of people who are kind of like-minded and want to play video games and enjoy them together. Enjoy them sometimes with their families, sometimes not with your family. That's totally okay too. If you need to step into your home office and play video games for an hour after a long day with the kids, that is totally okay. You can do that. So I hope you have a fantastic week. Get out there and enjoy a beautiful Saturday in the middle of June. And I will see you next week, same time, same place.